I'm Congressman Al Green. I'm proud to represent the 9th Congressional District of Texas, and I'm also honored to say that within the 9th Congressional District we have two counties, Harris County and Fort Bend County. We also have multiple cities. Aside from the city of Houston, we have Stafford and Missouri City, Texas. And I'm proud to be here today with persons associated with these counties and these cities, as well as many other institutions within the counties and cities. This is a great occasion. This is an occasion that calls for great celebration because the Congress of the United States of America understands that people are suffering and that they need help. And as a result of the people suffering and the help being needed and the Congress responding, I'm proud to say to you that we have passed a bill with $1.9 trillion worth of help. Somebody might want to say $1.9 trillion worth of help. And as we move through this, various persons will come over and have an opportunity to speak, and they will explain how this $1.9 trillion worth of help is going to benefit the institution that they happen to be with. For those who don't have your phones on silent, you may want to join me and put it on silent. I didn't have mine on silent or vibrate, so it's now in its proper position. But we are going to have persons come over and say a few words. Everybody's going to be as brief as possible. I will start with a statement, and we have information that we will hand out to each member of the press as well as the persons who are here so that you can get a sense of just how big this piece of legislation is. When I tell you it is huge, it is huge. So let me thank first the Missouri City Police for providing us services today. We are grateful, and we thank you, and we thank your mayor for allowing this to take place. Give Missouri City Police a big appreciation, please. Now, let's start. I had a bill, H.R. 1669, the State Small Business Credit Initiative. We'll just call it the Small Business Credit Initiative for our purposes today. This bill was for $10 billion, not million, $10 billion. And I have to emphasize the billion because rarely do you have the opportunity to carry a piece of legislation that will bring $10 billion to constituents across the length and breadth of the country. This bill has within it an opportunity for persons who have small businesses to acquire funds, and these funds will be replicated to the extent that the $10 billion can become $100 billion, $100 billion. Let's talk for a moment about some of the things that we have in this $10 billion. There is a set aside in the $10 billion. $500 million will go to employers with 9 or fewer employees, $500 million. We have $2.5 billion set aside for entities that we call MDIs. MDIs are Minority Depository Institutions. Mr. Whaley, who is with us, is associated with a Minority Depository Institution. These are small banks. These are usually banks like Unity National Bank, which has an office right down the street in this very neighborhood. $2.5 billion for these MDIs to make the loans to the small businesses. Here's how the program functions in a very nutshell form of an explanation. The money, the $10 billion, is in the Treasury. The Treasury establishes this small business program within it. That money then will go to the various states. And when it gets to the states then will pass it on to the various entities that I have mentioned and others. A bank this size can get some of the money. That money then goes to the banks, and the banks have explicit things that they can do with the money in terms of making loans to small businesses. This is designed for small businesses. The reason I know it was designed for small businesses is because I wrote the language myself. It is designed for small businesses, and my intent is for it to get to small businesses. I have to share this with you. It's important to know how this process works in whole, in toto. Here's how the process works. We have a friend who's joining us, and we're honored to have him, and I assure you, friend, that you have not missed very much. Here's how the process works. We in Congress have the preeminent privilege of appropriating the dollars. Once we appropriate it, we send it. We send it to the executive branch. The executive branch executes. This is an executive branch that Judge George has. This is executive. All of the mayors are executives. They execute because they have the resources to execute. They have departments. Congressional offices have about 21 people that work in them. So we send it to these departments in these various cities and these various counties. Simply put, we send it and they spend it. How then does a congressperson influence that process? With goodwill, with a good relationship. But we don't have a vote once it gets to the county or once it gets to a city. We have no vote in that process. And I'm saying this to you because most of the people will hear about this $10 billion, they will be calling me to get some portion of the $10 billion. Right. And then I need to let you know that I'll be sending them to you to get some portion of the $10 billion because I don't have a vote. My vote was cast when I cast my vote for the $1.9 trillion. That is where I played a role in voting. So it will come to the various cities and municipalities. With that said, I want to now move to a fair housing piece of legislation that we have in the bill. This is related to a bill, H.R. 1674, that I introduced. And by the way, all of what I do under the leadership of the Honorable Maxine Waters, who is the chairperson of the Financial Services Committee. I happen to be the chairperson of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations. Under this committee, Financial Services, we allocated $20 million for FIP. FIP is an entity that helps us to monitor and ascertain whether or not discrimination is taking place. FIP, the Housing Fairness Entity, it's properly known as the Fair Housing Initiative Program, but this Housing Fairness Entity will check with landlords to see if they are discriminating, and if they are, then they can call these things to the attention of the appropriate authorities to eliminate discrimination to the extent that it can be. And I mention this because this level of discrimination in terms of leasing to people has gone up during the pandemic. In terms of evicting people has gone up during the pandemic. So we need to have agencies and entities that can monitor to make sure that we are treating everybody equally. To more specific allocations now. We will start with the City of Houston. I'm proud to say I represent the City of Houston, and the City of Houston is going to receive a total amount of $615+ million. 615. Let's give a big hand to the City of Houston in my absence. I've already talked to Mayor Turner. He's very much aware that they'll be getting this $615 million. For Harris County, the total amount will be $914+ million. Let's hear it for Harris County. Now I'm going to move to Judge George, who will come over and speak. For Fort Bend County, I am proud to say that I represent Fort Bend, and Fort Bend will get $157+ million. Fort Bend County. Judge George, I'd like for you to come over and give your expressions about the recipient, as a recipient of these dollars.
Thank you, Congressman. It is absolutely an honor and privilege to be here, and this is an amazing moment for us because, as you know, when it comes to CARE Act money, more than 55% of the money authorized to us, we don't know what happened to it. We got around $144 million, and the rest of around $170+ million. We don't know even today what happened to it. That's why this legislation is so beautiful, because the money is coming to Fort Bend County, belongs to Fort Bend County. The money is coming to City of Sugar Land, belongs to City of Sugar Land. And it is so well thought out. And I just wanted to thank Congressman Al Green, your leadership in it. And since the day one I got into office, Congressman, you have always been there. When I make a phone call, I don't know you know that, Congressman usually pick up his cell phone.
I just learned that.
Yeah, and also he agreed with saying that I am your congressman. And so I'm so proud to know you, sir, to begin with. And so every step of the way when we had COVID challenges, every step of the way you stepped up. And this is another example of your leadership, and I'm so thankful. And I cannot say that with every congresspeople representing, unfortunately, Fort Bend County. I cannot say that, very unfortunate. But I am so proud to be part of this discussion. I am so proud to be involved in this, and this money, I promise you, Congressman, this will put to use to the best of our ability to help people, struggling people, to get back to their normal life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Fort Bend County. Rachel, will you start passing out the information? What I'm sharing with you verbally, I will share with you in greater detail, and there's more of it that will be handed out. Make sure all of the members of the press and as many persons as we can who are standing with me, make sure that they get copies of this, okay? All right, we will move now to Missouri City. Missouri City, the tax base is not what it was for Missouri City. My hope is that it will increase, but until it does, Missouri City will have $7.4 million. $7.4 million for Missouri City. Mayor, where are you? Oh, there we are. Come on over, Mayor.
I just want to also take this opportunity and echo what County George said. We are so grateful for this opportunity and to have this legislation that we passed. And also, it was about a year ago today, or at this time in March, that we had this pandemic. And what the struggles, our business community, our residents, all of them have, it cost them. So I want to take this opportunity to thank our congressman. Also recognize some of our city council members who are here. I have our Mayor Pro Tem Anthony Marules who's here, and our District B council member, Jeffrey Boney, and he's going to speak in a few minutes. And then also our city manager who's worked with us, Otis Jones. And just want to quickly say this, Congressman Green has always been a partner with City of Missouri City. I just happened to be in office for about 2 months, but prior to that, he has always showed Missouri City the true definition of a congressman as to his hard work, especially during this winter freeze. I couldn't thank County Judge George, State Rep Ron Reynolds, and our congressman that stepped up to Missouri City and helped us, even in that process, being here and physically in Missouri City and guide us through that process. So I'm very grateful for that. And this legislation, Congressman, will put use to the residents of Missouri City, business community, as well as those who are struggling. And we're thankful, we're grateful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Did we get information to our Chronicle representative? Did you get a copy of it?
I did.
Okay, good. All right, the mayor mentioned Councilmember Boney, and Councilmember Boney will come up. He happens to have a special title, and I will leave it to him to announce his special title, but I do know this. He has been engaged not only at the local level, but also at the national level in helping us to understand the needs and the resources that are necessary to help cities get through these turbulent times. So, Councilmember Boney, would you come over, please? Give him a hand.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you first and foremost to the leader in Texas 9 that went down to Washington, D.C. to help deliver these very, very important resources to Fort Bend County, especially the city of Missouri City, and that's Congressman Al Green. Let me tell you that he was one of the courageous ones that listened to the needs and to the concerns of individuals. I serve not only as council member here in Missouri City, Texas, but also I was reappointed to serve as the National League of Cities Federal Advocacy Committee, Community and Economic Development. And we help to shape the public policy relative to the needs and concerns of cities across the United States. So I worked collaboratively with my peers across the country that are part of this committee to listen to these concerns. And we wanted the money to come directly to the county and directly to municipalities like Missouri City so that because we know best what our constituents need. And in the midst of COVID-19 and the coronavirus, we've lost revenue. Many of our residents have been impacted in many of our small businesses. So as a former banker myself and a former chamber executive, president and CEO, I know how important these monies going to these minority depository institutions as well as to these small businesses is to help our city continue to grow and thrive in the midst of COVID-19 and beyond. So thank you again, and the courageous leaders on the Senate side, although those that voted against it are still going to benefit from it. Their constituents are still going to benefit from it. We thank those that did have the courage to step up, stand up, and defend cities and municipalities like Missouri City, Texas. And now, Congressman, we look to work with you on an infrastructure bill for the infrastructure needs. I know we're relishing in this money, but we definitely need an infrastructure bill for our city as well. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on now to the city of Stafford. The city of Stafford's mayor is here, and the city councilwoman is here as well, so I'll ask them to come over together. Stafford will be receiving $3.79 million. Give them a hand, please. Stafford.
All right, Congressman, thank you. I can't even imagine what $3.7 million check looks like. Because I've never got one and never will. But I want to express a personal appreciation and gratitude to Congressman Green. For many years, there has been a special relationship and I believe a special place in his heart for the city of Stafford. He checks with us not only during catastrophic events, but he checks on us yearly under normal conditions. And that takes a special person, especially someone whose time is so consumed, just to reach out. How are you doing? What do you need? How can I help you? So from myself and the citizens of Stafford, we thank you for remembering us. We thank you for checking on us, and we appreciate so much the concept and the ideas and the thought process you go through in remembering the city of Stafford. So we want to continue that relationship, make it even stronger. And I'm not going to talk about my wish list. I'll email it to you so we won't take up time. So thank you so much, Congressman. I just cannot express our appreciation and gratitude.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. Briefly, if you would, please. This is Councilmember Chen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alice Chen. I'm City Council of Stafford, also Mayor Pro Tem. Everybody here talk about leadership of Congressman Al Green. I'm the one witnesses because, ladies and gentlemen, I worked for Congressman since 2006 for 12 years. I work for him as a community liaison. Congressman care everybody in the community. Doesn't matter what color you, doesn't matter what color your skin is. He hired me as an Asian community liaison. He hired different community people to take care of everyone in our community. For Bend County, Missouri City, Stafford, everywhere. He go everywhere, listen to people, what do you need? I'm fighting for you in the Congress. He promised something, he delivered. We don't see congressmen fighting for every little city like us, but Congressman remember everybody in this community. And I want to say this, we are so lucky to have a congressman fighting for us, for Fort Bend County, for the Harris County, for also Harris County, for everybody in Texas, for everybody in this country. He's a great leader, and we're going to learn from him, because I learned from him for 12 years. He encouraged me to run as a private person. I'm the first Asian American serve as a city council. Thank you so much, Congressman. Thank you.
I have to kind of pull Alice because I was starting to believe some of what she said. You got to be careful. Thank you, Alice, but that's wonderful. Alice and I did work together for many years, and I'm proud of the association that we had. Let us now move to education. And this is a really big ticket item for us because education, as you know, is very important. We want our schools to open, but we want them to open safely. And I'm proud to tell you that the Stafford MSD, Stafford is the only city in the state of Texas that has within its purview and control an ISD. And Stafford ISD, or MSD, more appropriately put, will get $3,171,000. $3,171,000. So, Mayor, again, thank you for what you do, and we'll make sure that we work with you to get that
We
money.
gradually accept that too.
All right. All right. Now, let's talk about Fort Bend ISD, and we have someone here who represents the teachers. Fort Bend ISD will be receiving $111,771,000. $111 million. And your name again is?
Glenda McCall.
Okay, Ms. McCall. If you would. And tell us who you are.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenda Guzman McCall, and I am the president of Fort Bend American Federation of Teachers. And on behalf of all the teachers, Congressman, we want to thank you for your support of education. We know that our teachers are going through a really hard time now. All of Fort Bend is going through a tough time because our teachers love our kids and they want to be in the classroom with the kids. But they can't do that if they're not safe, if the kids are not safe, if the parents are not safe, because it extends way beyond the classroom, it extends to the family. And so I know that this money will help support the educational needs, the excessive educational needs that we continue to have in the school district, especially because of COVID. And so we just really appreciate your efforts. We appreciate the support that you've given the community, and we're just very happy and lucky to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another hand for them, please. Well, Superintendent Chambers, are you here? Okay, you hit the jackpot. You hit the jackpot because A-Leaf ISD will be receiving $199,411,000. And I'm going to apologize because we tried to get it to 200 million, but we didn't.
Obviously, thank you and your colleagues for understanding and the importance of education. And I'll be brief, but I want to take a different message just for 1 second, and maybe talk about what we're going to use the money for.
Please.
And I think as an educator, as a superintendent, I'm H.D. Chambers. I'm the superintendent of schools for A-Leaf ISD. Been there for 10 years. Spent 5 years in Fort Bend County and worked with Mayor Willis and Representative Reynolds as the superintendent of Stafford. So I'm kind of coming back home a little bit. But here's what I think, short of the individuals who have lost their lives to COVID, other than those tragic stories, the segment of our population in our country that has suffered the most are our school-age kids. And the students who are specifically the most vulnerable are students who come from many parts of Fort Bend County, many parts of Harris County, almost all of A-Leaf ISD. And those are children who come from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. They come from non-English speaking backgrounds. They come from, unfortunately, they don't have the support that many of us have and are able to provide our own children. And so the money, the $200 million, that's a lot of money. I can tell you that in order for us to make up the lost learning that has taken place the last 12 months, and I cannot overemphasize how dramatic that is. And if you think about all the 4-year-olds and the 5-year-olds who have been at home for 1 year and are not going to benefit from a pre-K program or a kindergarten program, they are going to come to our schools. They're going to come to Stafford. They're going to come to Fort Bend ISD. They're going to come to A-Leaf. They're going to come to Houston. They're going to come to our school systems anywhere from a year to 2 to 3 years behind their peers in literacy and numeracy. If that doesn't get your attention, if that doesn't, and I'm glad I got y'all's attention, it is going to take 3 to 6 years for us to overcome those losses. So this $200 million that we're receiving, the money that each district is receiving, will be spent on things like lowering class sizes, fewer children per adult. It will be bringing in outside tutors and mentors. Instead of tutoring and mentoring a group of 10 students, we will now have the ability to mentor maybe 1 or 2 students at a time. It will go towards creating a better ventilation system in our facilities to try to overcome anything that's now and anything that may come to us in the future as it relates to airborne viruses and diseases. It will be used to provide transportation to our students who have no transportation. It will be used for providing the type of resources, devices, technology. Man, have we learned that that's it's a blessing and it's a curse. And if you're a mom or dad who've been trying to teach your 4th grader how to read and write using a Chromebook or a laptop, you know the struggles. At some point, it became almost an effort and futility. But it's incumbent upon us to use these resources for things like that. And then last but certainly not least, it's going to be used to help engage our families and help us prepare our parents to help them be better, not better parents, but better teachers and supporters of their children. So we've got plans on how the money is going to be used. My final ask is to make sure the state of Texas leadership flows that money to the local school systems and the local entities so we're able to put it to use and do that as soon as humanly possible. So with that, thank you, Congressman.
Thank you. Having mentioned the state of Texas, I'm going to call on our state representative, Ron Reynolds, to give his comments at this time. Representative Reynolds. Give him a hand, please.
Thank you, Congressman Green. I'm Ron Reynolds. I'm proud to serve as state representative for House District 27. And much has been said. I can ditto everything that was stated, from county judges to the mayors to the superintendent to the president of the school board. Congressman Al Green truly is a transformational leader. He has been a mentor of mine for many years. We share many of the same constituents in Missouri City and Stafford and Arcola and other parts of Fort Bend County. This is a congressman that transcends his position. He is truly a public servant. He's the personification of leadership, someone who gets the job done. And this is another example of bringing home the bacon for the constituents of the 9th Congressional District, and really America. Texans are benefiting from this. And I'm really disappointed that some of our congressional delegation didn't support this, but I thank Congressman Green for doing it, for listening to the cities, for listening to the counties, for listening to the small businesses, as Councilmember Boney said, are the economic engines that drive our economy. They're suffering. People need vaccines, and Congressman Green's leadership in this budget will provide Fort Bend County more vaccines, provide Texans more vaccines. And you're right, HD Chambers, the state of Texas needs to make sure that we stop playing partisan politics and do what's right for the people. And I'm very grateful for the leadership of Congressman Green. And I will continue to speak truth to power, even if that means telling Governor Abbott what he needs to do and what she should do, as Judge KP and I did earlier. So, Congressman Green, I just want to publicly thank you for your tremendous leadership, for doing it for the people, for doing it for the businesses, and as you say, doing it for the least, the last, and the lost. And I thank God for you. You're serving in Congress at such a time as this, because we need true leadership in Congress. I'm going to say this as I close. We've seen so much dysfunction in Congress, but guarantee you it's not because of Congressman Green. Congressman Green is one of those who tries to unify people. He tries to work across the aisle. He tries to bring people together of all races, as City Councilmember Chien said, all races. He is a transformational leader. He doesn't play partisan politics, but he speaks truth to power. And if he calls people out, whether it's former President Trump or anybody, he does that without fear or favor. And for that, I ask you to give him another round of applause. Thank you, Congressman Green. We stand behind you, and I will join with you as your state partner on Hurricane, on the winter storm, on Harvey, on anything. He has been there for us. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Reynolds. Appreciate it greatly. And this may be my finest hour. After this, I don't know where it goes. Thank you. As Dr. Prieta Stallworth comes forward, let me just follow up on a couple of things that the representative said. For vaccinations, we have in this legislation $20 billion to establish a national COVID-19 vaccination program. We have $7.5 billion going to FEMA to establish vaccination sites. We have a site over in the 9th Congressional District near the Astrodome, NRG Stadium, and we're putting 6,000 shots in arms per day at that site. There's $1 billion in this legislation for the CDC Vaccine Awareness and Engagement Campaign. People have to know, they have to be educated. This $1 billion is going to go a long way toward helping us get that knowledge and education out there. When it comes to testing and contract tracing and mitigation, $47.8 billion for testing, contact tracing, and mitigation. $10 billion to produce, to boost domestic production of critical PPE. So we have the money to cover most of the contingencies associated with this horrific disease, COVID-19. With this said, because she's an educator, I'm going to ask her to come over, and as you come over, Dr. Prieta, I want you to know that we have $130 billion to help K through 12 schools reopen safely, $40 billion for institutions of higher education, $7.1 billion to reimburse schools and libraries. I think the schools are covered.
I think we
Come on over. Give her a hand, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Prieta Vanderbilt, Starward, Houston Community College, District 9. And community colleges have a direct impact on and a direct collaboration with our K-12 institutions. I want to thank you, Congressman Green, because at this moment in time, we need our skills and trades training, our short-term, 4-week, 6-week, 8-week, 10-week training to prepare our trades and skills workforce for what we are now facing in the state of Texas. And the community colleges do that. We also do that in collaboration with our K-12 institutions. This funding allows us to be able to ramp up our labs. It allows us to be able to increase the number of students that can be served. It allows us to improve our infrastructure so that we can better prepare. Congressman Green has always been a friend to our skills and trades, we wouldn't do it without him. And so now this funding will help us to further that cause. And we thank you from AFL-CIO, of which my father was a member of. We thank you from community colleges who keep their boots on the ground to make sure that those who are marginalized can be adequately educated and move forward into the workforce with confidence. And thank you for our collaborations with our K-12 institutions, because without them, community college would not have enrollees. So thank you, Congressman Green. Thank you for this. And I do believe it does cover everything.
This is the Prego of legislation. It's in there. Okay, let's move on to housing assistance. We have $27.5 billion for emergency rental assistance. There are many people who face eviction across the length of the country and the breadth of the country. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to stay in their homes. We have $10 billion to help homeowners who are struggling to afford their housing, and that's very important. We have $5 billion to help persons pay their utility bills. There are people who are behind. We don't want the lights out. We're going to help keep the lights on. $5 billion to help pay utility bills. In the area of food security, I know of no entity in this country that does more to help in the area of food security than the Houston Food Bank. No entity in this country. And I don't know whether they give tours on a regular basis, but if you have the opportunity to go by and see how they have automated this process, how they have organized this process, you will be absolutely amazed as to how they can take things that are to be sorted and end up with a product that can go right in the trunk of a person's car. I've seen it come from the hands that deliver it to them to the hands that receive it at these various sites where we've been out helping people with food. So I'm proud to say that in the area of food security, there will be $1.1 billion for SNAP monies. We used to call it food stamps. There will be $800 million for WIC. There will be $5 billion in PEBT school meals, food for children in need of meals. But the food stamp program and all of these others don't function without the aid of what the food bank does. And I have signed on to a piece of legislation that will be dropped, and that piece of legislation will help us to provide some direct funding to entities like the Houston Food Bank. So let me ask our representative from the Houston Food Bank to come over, please, and give us some comments. Give her a hand, please.
My name is Dr. Catherine Byers, and I'm the Government Relations Officer at the Houston Food Bank. The Houston Food Bank wants to thank Congressman Green, the President, and all of the policymakers who are working so hard to meet the needs of their communities. The Houston Food Bank sees the dire need on a regular basis. In collaboration with our community partners, we are distributing over 800,000 pounds of food per day. That is double pre-pandemic. Imagine that. And when you do, you will understand that food banks alone cannot be the solution. We need systemic change such as that's in the American Rescue Plan. Yes. The continuation of the 15% SNAP boost helps families and benefits our economy. PBET extension so that kids can eat even if they're not in a school building is a benefit to our families, and millions of children will be raised out of poverty by the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. There's lots of work still to be done, and the Houston Food Bank, Feeding Texas, and Feeding America look forward to doing that work, so we're not just shortening the food line, we're eliminating the need for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's move now to the area of small businesses. We have in this bill and in this package, if you will, $7.25 billion in additional funds for PPP, $28.66 billion for the SBA, and $15 billion in emergency grants through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan known as the EIDL program. And we have with us today a businessman who is known as the father of the International District. And that's because he helped to put it together. It would not exist probably but for him. He had a vision and it has come to fruition. We will now hear from Mr. Whaley. Give him a big hand, please.
Thank you, Brother Al. Such a touching opportunity for all of us. You know, I've been in the city of Houston more than 40 years. I'm here to represent a small financial institutions and hundreds of a small business. Because this bill, probably they're going to get some help. You see, our district have a lot of small business, restaurant people, they never get in touch with us. So Congressman, as we mentioned, this time we're definitely going to do it. Let's see, the people have an issue, we're going to let them solve this problem. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you. Give away your hand, please. Thank you. Let us move next, and we are coming to an end, but I have to mention our veterans. In this package, we have $14.5 billion for the VA to provide health care services for our veterans. Let's hear it for our veterans, please. FEMA. Many of us are in need of help from FEMA currently. And I say us because we are the conduits to help people within our various districts. $50 billion for Disaster Relief Fund, $300 million for FEMA firefighter grants. FEMA is going to be able to do more. In the area of transit and airlines, $8 billion to support our airports. Now we go to healthcare, which is very important because in our district we have what we call FQHCs, federally qualified health centers and clinics, and these clinics provide services that are local and they are on the ground and they are with and among people. And I'm proud to say that we have someone here representing the FQHCs today. George Anderson is here and he has a special guest with him. But for the FQHCs, $7.6 billion. $7.6 billion. And for those who may not be aware a billion is still 1,000 million. All right, George, come on over.
Thank you, Congressman, and I'd like to echo the sentiments that everyone has expressed in thanking you for your legislative advocacy. But not only that, you are boots on the ground. We are a faith-based group, and so our pastor, Dr. Remus Wright, we've had instances where the congressman has been out with us passing out water, passing out food, giving assistance to the community. So we want to thank you publicly for that. In regards to FQHC, I am honored to have Dr. Charlene Flash, and I'm going to ask her to come on up. Dr. Flash is the CEO of Avenue 360 Health and Wellness. I'm going to let you speak.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Charlene Flash. I'm the president and CEO of Avenue 360. I'm an infectious disease physician, and so as I sit amongst all of us in our masks, we recognize what a health burden we all have experienced over this last year as we suffered with COVID. But at community health centers, what we recognize is that health is not just the absence of disease. It's not just about beating COVID. It's about creating full health for the communities that we serve. And so many of the other things that are in this bill address the social determinants of health. Because health is about physical health, it's about mental health, it's about social well-being. So things like food and transportation and education, those are all core to having a healthy community. So on behalf of my agency and on behalf of the community health centers and federally qualified health centers, I want to thank Congressman Green for the advocacy and for the broad sight that says that it's not just about vaccines and testing. It's about all those other elements that allow us to have healthy communities that can fully contribute. So thank you.
Thank you. Please, thank you very much. For fear that we will forget, I did not recognize Stafford Council Member Javier Herrera, who is here. Give him a hand, please. And I did not recognize Missouri City Manager Otis Jones. Where is the manager? There's the manager. I haven't heard him speak, so I'm going to ask him to come over and say a word. Give him a hand, please, Mr. City Manager.
Well, I too echo a lot of what's been said here. This bill has something for everyone. And so I'll speak from an implementation standpoint. We're going to be able to use the resources in Missouri City in a way that help to leverage new business growth, but more importantly, as the program calls out for the sustainability of existing businesses as well, and work really hard for the overall vitality of economic growth for our city moving ahead. And for that, we thank you. And we look forward to working with you. We certainly appreciate you in your office for working closely with us during the storm. And we look forward to that continued work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see if anyone is here from any other office that I may have missed. My staff is pretty good about getting these things to me. I think I've covered everyone. So the only persons who haven't spoken are members of the press. And the press has to have its speaking time as well. So at this time, I'm going to yield to the press for questions or comments. And who will be first? Yes, sir.
Congressman, this bill provides $28.6 billion for independently owned restaurants. How much of a difference will that money make for struggling mom and pop restaurants, bars, and cafes in Fort Bend County?
I can tell you what they tell me. They tell me that they are on the margins, and a good many of them are facing closure. That's something that we don't want to see. These businesses not only provide the food, but they provide opportunities for people to have jobs, to take care of families, send children to school, pay mortgages. So they tell me that this is going to be of great benefit because it will keep a good many of them afloat during this time of economic crisis. And there is an economic crisis in this area, this sector of the economy. So we have to do more to help. And I think that this bill addresses the needs. Thank you for that question. Next, please. Can you speak just a little bit louder? Anyone else?
Congressman Green,
yes.
You've been on the front lines helping cities like Missouri City for more than 16 years now. these emergencies that you mentioned today are critical, but what was different in your mind in writing this bill about the current pandemic and also the other emergencies that made you focus so much on small businesses, the economy, and also helping families just recover and move forward?
Well, thank you. We have storms in Houston and in the Gulf Coast area quite regularly, too often for my constituents. But this pandemic has taken over 500,000 lives. It makes it different. Hurricanes, well, every life is important, but hurricanes don't come through and just totally demolish the economic order. The economic order in this country was shut down, completely shut down, and around the world. I've never seen in my lifetime the economies of the world completely shut down. This pandemic has caused us to rethink a lot of the things that we are doing, and especially things associated with healthcare. So it made a difference in my thinking because of the lives lost, because of the way the economy has had to shut down, and because the recovery is still something that we're into. I'm letting people know without question or reservation, please continue to wear the mask. It's not going to hurt you to wear the mask as far as I have been told by the experts. There may be some problems associated with some allergies or things like that that can be overcome. But not wearing the mask may be the reason that you won't be around to see the end of the recovery. So I'm encouraging people to wear your mask. I'm encouraging people to continue to practice the sanitization of hands and to practice social distancing. All of these things are still important. That's why we need this money, because the recovery is not yet over. We want to open schools safely. We need to make sure that we provide the equipment for schools to open safely, and that includes a better ventilation system in a good many schools. We want to make sure that we have fire and police protection. When the tax base has eroded in cities, then that's what the federal government is supposed to do. We're supposed to step in, and that's what we're doing. And finally, if we believe, truly believe, that in this country we are all in it together, then we all have to not only sacrifice together, but we all ought to recover together. This bill provides enough resources so that every sector of the country can recover together. And we're going to do all that we can to make sure that it is properly implemented, because as the superintendent mentioned earlier, we want education funds to go to education, not to the general fund in the state of Texas. That's an important thing for us to do, to have money utilized as properly allocated. It's different because it has enormous impacts on the economy, on healthcare, and on the recovery that we're trying to get through. Thank you for the question. Any other questions before I give a closing comment? Okay, no other questions. Let me give this closing statement. I want to thank all of the persons who were here today, and I want to thank them for their kind words. I want you to know that my mother would love all of you. You were very kind, and I appreciate all of you. I know each person here, and these are some devoted and dedicated public servants. They need help. It's one thing to be a public servant with resources, and another thing to be a public servant in need of resources. Hopefully, this will make the difference for all of the public servants who are here today. There are many others who are not here. We could have filled the room, but we did have to practice what we preach and maintain some semblance of social distancing and wearing of the mask. So we thought this to be an appropriate number of people to do this and not give the appearance of having some huge gathering, which we probably should not have at this point. I also want to thank persons who are not here for what they have done. I want to thank the police officers, the firefighters, those who didn't make it through the pandemic, who lost their lives to the pandemic. And I want to thank their families for being there for them throughout this time of need. And my prayers are with the family members who are still in recovery. When you lose a life, it is not something that you get over quickly. And there are many people who are suffering. And these were our first responders who were out there helping us. I also want to thank some of those frontline workers in places that serve us food, places that stock the shelves, and places that require the services that are called essential. And these persons can't work from home. They have a hands-on experience with their work. So I thank them for going to work every day knowing that they could contract this deadly virus. So with all of this said, I just say thank you to all. I'm grateful to my colleagues who voted for this legislation. And for those who did not vote for the legislation, I understand you will have your rationale, but I have one favor to ask of those who didn't vote for it. When there's a ribbon-cutting ceremony, when there's an opportunity to talk about how great this legislation is, I don't mind you talking about how great it is. I don't mind you being there for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. But please say, I didn't vote for it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.